hit some anytime goal scorers as well as safe shots from goal for some of these goalies. Give me both teams to score in the first period. That's coming in at plus 185 compared to the over 1.5 that is at minus 120. Okay, you guys ready? Let's make some frickin' money. It's time for Puck It with Jo. Good morning, everyone, and happy Tuesday. Jo here of SportsGrid. It's time for Puck It with Jo over here on a SportsGrid TV on X as well as on YouTube. I hope everyone is having a great start to their morning. Good morning, Mo. Good to see you here. We've got a loaded slate out there on the ice. We have the Western Conference wild card race up for grabs with all three teams fighting it out for that wild card, for those two wild card spots in action tonight. So playoff implications in that one. We have some teams looking to true up to form before going into the playoffs. Some on the first night of a back-to-back, which I do think we'll see more out of them in this game than tomorrow's game, and some teams that are pretty set in their positions, so just looking to play out the rest of the season, stay healthy, and not show other teams what they have up their sleeves. So lots to go over today. We'll break down each and every single one of these games. And like always, we will do the recap at the end of the show. We'll look at those player props as well for those 2+ points. Good morning. Good to see you here, Jose. So let's jump into the first matchup. Now, this is going to be the New Jersey Devils versus the Boston Bruins. The puck will drop at 7 p.m. Eastern. First night of a back-to-back here for the New Jersey Devils. We know New Jersey is locked into that third spot in the Metro. 89 points in 80 games. So they're locked into the third. They're not moving anywhere. Now they're taking on a Boston Bruins team that is playing their last game of the regular season. They're here at home. They're off that win versus the Pittsburgh Penguins in their last game out on a Sunday 4-1. They'll be starting Swayman. Jacob Markstrom looking to get the start here for the Devils. And while I do think the New Jersey Devils would love to play that kind of game where they're really getting ready for the playoffs, I do think if anyone is going to be just locking down, it will be Jacob Markstrom in goal. His last game, this will be today before he plays in the playoffs. So we're looking at the first night of back-to-back for the Devils with the Red Wings on deck. I do think they start off nice and strong in the first period. I'm going to take the first period over 1.5 goals. That's coming in at minus 110. I don't care who scores them here. I do expect Boston to net us one of those goals, but I think the Devils will come out looking to get on the board right away. And they've lost their last 3. Like I said, this team has to get back into playoff form. They can't go into the playoffs taking all of these losses, but I won't be shocked if Boston gets this win tonight. Boston on the money line is just not a price that I really want to jump on right now. We're only getting the Boston Bruins at plus 122. Now, this line is moving up as the day goes on, and that is great because if we're getting this at a minus or a plus 140 mark, that's where I want to jump on the Boston Bruins. It has more value for me. At plus 122, when I looked earlier, it was plus 114. So we're seeing that movement. I still want to wait for more money to come in here on the New Jersey Devils. And I do think this is because of what we saw last night versus the LA Kings. You guys, we sat here yesterday. The LA Kings were basically a pick 'em with the Edmonton Oilers as the day went on. We saw that move to a $2 favorite with the Kings. So hopefully you jumped on it early, but I do think we're seeing people jumping on the favorite here, looking for the Devils to really make a good game of this one before they roll into the playoffs, and they don't want to do it tomorrow versus the Red Wings. So I do think we'll get a better price at some point here for the Boston Bruins. So at that point, you want to grab them plus the 1.5. It would be an interesting look. Now the total is sitting at 5.5, and I'd go to the over 5.5 before I would go to the under. The over 5.5 coming in at plus 100. I think there's a couple of things to look at. The Boston Bruins have dominated the New Jersey Devils, winning 3 of the last 4 meetings. They won in New Jersey just on April 8th. So you do have that revenge angle for the Devils, but they won 7-2. Big win for the Boston Bruins in New Jersey. So I do think Boston's going to put up a good game. Like I said, live betting Boston if we're getting better value for them. Now they have come out strong in the first period, winning their last 5, so we might not get that better value, but I do think there's players you want to look at for the Boston Bruins as they wrap up their final game of the season in front of their home fans. So Pasternak sitting here with 104 points, 42 goals and 62 assists. You guys know I love combining Pasta and Morgan Geeky. Morgan Geeky, he will be a free agent this summer. And I think if you want to go big on someone, it is Morgan Geeky to look to pad those stats before, for his last game so that he gets the most of his contract next season, be it with Boston or be it somewhere else. So Morgan Geeky, 56 points on the season, 32 goals, 24 assists. I'd look at Morgan Geeky for the 2+ points. I do think Jacob Markstrom, well, he's been so solid in stretches out there for the New Jersey Devils. The Devils without Dougie Hamilton have really struggled on that defensive side, and I do think Morgan Geeky will be involved in 2 goals, whether it's a goal and an assist for him or 2 goals or 2 assists. I think Morgan Geeky will be part of that. Zaka coming in here with 47 points, 14 goals, 33 assists. Elias Lindholm did get that goal in that last game. He's got 46 points, 17 goals, 29 assists. I could see him getting a point at Middlestat, 40 points. If you're going to circle 2, it's Pasta and Morgan Geeky. On the other side, for the New Jersey Devils, we do have a couple players out rested, but we should get a good performance out of Jasper Bratt, Nico Hischier, and Timo Meier. I would look at all 3 of them for their point parlay together. Jasper Bratt coming in here with 88 points on the season, 21 goals, and 67 assists. Nico Hischier with 67 points, 35 goals, and 32 assists. And Timo Meier sitting solid at 50 points, 25 goals, and 25 assists. If you parlay the 3 of them for their point tonight, that's going to get you basically 3 to 1 to your money. I didn't know, Lisa, your wife's name is Jo. Shout out to your wife, Jo, then. Jo, good morning to you, too. Let's make some freaking money, that's for sure. Afternoon puckers, how not take Geeky and Pasta. Yeah, you got to take Pasta and Geeky for those points parlayed together. It's just been straight money for us. Let's move on to the Chicago Blackhawks. They're taking on the Ottawa Senators. Now, yes, Ottawa is locked in that wildcard spot, but I do think the first wildcard spot in the Eastern Conference. But I think this game is really important for the Ottawa Senators to clean up their defensive side of things. I'm looking for a really strong performance out of Ottawa tonight. We will have some players rested, but I do think we're going to get that lockdown on the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, we know Chicago last night pushed Montreal to overtime. Montreal lost in overtime. It went all the way to a shootout. And there's so many, did you guys see? I don't know if you guys saw the shootout, but we did see Chicago shoot it. It went in the back of Sam Montreville's net. It got stuck in the net, and it wasn't counted as a goal at first. And then we saw Montreal take a shot. Patrick Laine went in there for a shot. It missed, but then they reviewed the goal previous, and it was a goal. So Chicago ended up winning it. It came down to Cole Caulfield trying to make that last shot, and it just wasn't good enough. So Montreal's still clinging to playoff hopes, but now it's opened that door for Columbus. If Montreal would have been able to get that win the last night, then Montreal would have locked themselves into that playoff spot, the second wildcard spot in the Eastern Conference, and now Columbus is open. So we're going to definitely look at that today, but looking at Ottawa, they're locked in that first wildcard spot in the Eastern Conference. They have, they're 4th in the Atlantic, 94 points. So looking at Chicago, they're coming off a shootout win last night. Spencer Knight will be in net for them tonight. Second night of a back-to-back is a hard situation normally for the Chicago Blackhawks. Last game of the season, they had a great performance last night, and I do think they're going to be very happy with what they were able to do in that game, especially against a team that's fighting to get into the playoffs, original 6 team as well. Chicago under 2.5 goals. I wanted to bet, but it's way too juicy, guys. It's coming in at -154. I do think they struggle to score on Allmark in this game. Like I said, I really do think if Ottawa's looking to clean up in some area, it has to be on the defensive side of things going into the playoffs. So I think that is really a spot that they need to work on. And I do think that they will look to work on that tonight. Now, David Perrin listed as rest tonight. So there are going to be players out. Riley Gregg day-to-day for rest as well. So both of those players day-to-day, we could see them in last minute, but I do think this is one where we can look at the Ottawa Senators to win this 4-2. I think this is a game you take them to cover that puck line, laying 1.5 on the puck line at -114. Now, if you do think that we see Chicago really putting their best foot forward and you think that they keep it tight, so 4-3 style game, you can still play the Ottawa Senators team total. Their team total coming in at 3.5. We know Spencer Knight has been allowing those goals to come in. So the over 3.5, you are going to have to lay juice. It's minus 136, but I don't hate it. I really do think 4-2 style game. So the over 3.5 for the Senators still works in that 4-2 situation, but that puck line does work at minus 114. You're just looking to lay less juice on the puck line than you would be on that team total. Now, Coach Green may really limit the minutes for the players out there, but I don't think that they take it easy on the ice either. So if you're looking for a playmaker, I would circle Tim Struzel. He had 2 goals and an assist in their overtime win in their last game out it was Sunday versus the Flyers. So that was a 4-3 win for Ottawa versus the Flyers on Sunday in overtime. And Tim Struzel, 3 points out there, 2 goals and 1 assist. So he's got 75 points on the season, 23 goals, 52 assists in 80 games. So he has been phenomenal. And if you really want to take someone for Chicago, Tyler Bertuzzi has scored a goal in 3 of the Blackhawks' last 4 road games, and he really has been playing some nice hockey out there. So that is where I'd go over looking at Connor Bedard or Teravainen. I'd look at Bertuzzi. It should be an interesting game, you guys. Good morning, Kev. I hope your day has started off good. Big money, no whammy. I don't like whammies, that's for sure. Let's move on to the next one, the Florida Panthers versus the Tampa Bay Lightning. It's going to be interesting to see how these two teams come out. Florida is a plus 158 underdog here on the road versus the Tampa Bay Lightning. And in a game that it should have been really intense out there. I just don't think we get that intensity because you look at the Florida Panthers, they're locked in that 3rd spot in the Atlantic. They can't take injury and they can't really show their hand here versus the Tampa Bay Lightning either. And they're resting. It seems like everyone is resting from the Florida Panthers. So very much like what we saw last night with the LA Kings versus the Edmonton Oilers. I think this line will continue to move in Tampa's favor, and we're starting to lose value even as we sit here. It's minus 192. When I opened the tab here on FanDuel, it was minus 180. So this line just keeps building and building here for the Tampa Bay Lightning as more and more players will be rested here for Florida. So this total sitting at 5.5, the under 5.5 at minus 105. You've got to wonder how much you get out of both of these teams, how much they push for that intensity. This is a dangerous game to bet because you're looking at a Tampa Bay Lightning team who are sitting 2nd in the Atlantic. Now, they have 100 points with 80 games. The Toronto Maple Leafs have 104 points with 80 games. So only 4 points do separate these two teams. And then we have Florida down 2 points. This is their 82nd game. So this is the last game of the regular season. We're not going to see Florida take over that 2nd spot of the Atlantic no matter what happens. Even if they get this win tonight, they then would tie with the Tampa Bay Lightning. And then I do think the Tampa Bay Lightning hold the tiebreaker, and then Tampa still has a game in hand. So you're not going to see a lot out of Florida tonight. So it's one of those games where do we really need to bet it? We don't really need to bet every game. We got Vanacek expected in goal for the Florida Panthers tonight. Andre Vasilevskiy here for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, one thing about Andre Vasilevskiy versus the Florida Panthers, those numbers haven't been great. I do think he gets the defensive support today. I really want to take this one under the 5.5, but I'm really cautious with the under 5.5 because we could see Vanacek get completely lit up. We could see that lack of defense there for the Florida Panthers. Now, this team does have depth. We know that. We know they've been able to pull off some great wins because of their depth, even resting players. But I think this has to be one where Florida just comes out and plays a lackadaisical game out there. And Tampa gets a nice big win with a couple of their players really padding their stats tonight. So I'm going to take Tampa in 60, the regulation bet for the Tampa Bay Lightning at minus 120. I'll also look at that puck line laying a goal and a half at plus 134. I would like to look at Tampa in the first period as well. On that puck line laying a half a goal, that's plus 146. And that gives us the best value, that first period puck line for Tampa to come out, make a statement right away. And then I think things could slow down out there. Now, when we're looking at the players who really want to put some numbers on the board for the Tampa Bay Lightning, well, they could have limited minutes out there. Jake Guentzel does have point number 80 loading. So 79 points, 40 goals, 40 assists. So I'd take Guentzel for a point. and then parlay it with Braden Point for a point. He has point number 80 loading as well. 79 points, 41 goals, and 38 assists. And then Kucherov for point number 120. He's got 36 goals, 83 assists, 119 points. So if you take Gunsel, Point, and Kucherov all for the point, it's going to give you just over 2-1 to your money. You're not getting as much value as some other players parlayed for those points just because these are the big names here for the Tampa Bay Lightning. But I do expect those points. I would not expect the power play because I do expect when these teams get the man advantage, because I do think we get a little scrappy out there, that we're going to see the other team really working on their PK, working on their kills. So I wouldn't take the power play points tonight, but I would look at those just points parlayed, because I do think Tampa comes out and wins this like 3-1 or 4-1 style of game. Now, if it's a 5-2, it does push us over that total, and that's why I'm a little leery of that total being there. Nick Paul is another player that you could look at here. He scored a goal in each of the Lightning's last 3 games against the Florida Panthers. So looking at Nick Paul on the season, 41 points, 22 goals, and 19 assists. You know he'd love to hit 42 points tonight. So definitely another playmaker you could look at out there. Thanks for becoming a new member, Glad the River. It's good to see if you guys want to become a member. Thanks. Thank you so much. We got some goal scorers yesterday, right? We had some really good games yesterday with those guys meeting their incentives, and we got a couple more. I'm looking for, goal number 30, point number. I missed Jamie Benn yesterday, you guys. Jamie Benn, not yesterday, the day before for, or was it yesterday? No, the day before for career goal number 400. So if you guys are looking at anything like that, make sure you do let us know in the chat, because it's always something that we need to circle, especially as the season comes to an end here. Let's look at the Columbus Blue Jackets. This is a team fighting for their playoff lives. The Columbus Blue Jackets taking on the Flyers, who will be sneaky good in this game. The Flyers looking to play that upset role at home in this one, are plus 122 underdog. This won't come easy to Columbus, but they do have the opportunity to get the win. They still need other things to happen. They can't have Montreal pick up another point in their next game if they want to make the playoffs. So they need a lot of help to make the playoffs. Minus 146 here for the Columbus Blue Jackets. It starts with them getting a win tonight for their hopes to stay alive. If they lose this game tonight, their hopes are completely done. We got a total of 6.5, minus 114 to the under, minus 105 to the over. And I do think with the way Elvis has struggled versus the Philadelphia Flyers, you've got to look at an over if you think Columbus has any ability to win. Now, I know the Columbus Blue Jackets have been stronger offensively at home on the season than they have been out there on the road, but their playoff lives are on the line here, and they can't take this one to OT. So this is going to be a situation where the goaltender is going to be pulled as soon as, if Columbus is down with 5 minutes left, you're going to see goaltending pulled, which only leads me to that over 6.5. Over 6.5 coming in at minus 105. And like I said, the Flyers are not going to go away easy in this one. Ergen has played 5 games versus the Columbus Blue Jackets in net tonight for the Flyers. He's got bad numbers too. He's got an .865 save percentage, a 3.31 goals against average, going 3-1 in his 5 games versus Columbus. When we look at Columbus, we look at Elvis. Like I said, absolutely struggled. Back in December, Elvis allowed 5 goals on 30 shots on his net. If he plays like that tonight, Columbus has no chance of winning. He's gone 2-4-2 in 9 games versus the Philadelphia Flyers with a 3.47 goals against average and an .891 save percentage. So not great numbers. Columbus will need to give him the support, get those goals on the board. You can look at Columbus's team total over 3.5. If you think Columbus has a chance of winning, they have to score 4 goals in this game. Columbus's team total over 3.5 is coming in at plus 108. I would rather do that than look at the money line. The money line for the Columbus Blue Jackets, it was minus 137. We're getting at minus 140. So that juice is starting to tick up on this game as well. So if Columbus has a chance, it's because they have to put 4 goals on the board, because I don't trust Elvis in this game. Adam Fantilli, I would be looking at to be able to get those goals at Monahan. This is a dangerous game, you guys. I do think Columbus gets 4 goals, but we could see 5 out of the Flyers, and we could see them push it to overtime. Jet Greaves confirmed for the Columbus Blue Jackets, which actually isn't bad. He's probably going to do a lot better than Elvis in net. Jet Greaves, let's just confirm Jet Greaves numbers versus the Flyers, because I have not looked at his numbers versus the Flyers. Okay, so his last 7 games, he's gone 5-2 with a .933 save percentage. I'm not getting numbers for Jet Greaves versus the Flyers when I first type it in, and I don't know why. Let's just try one more time. Okay. He's got okay numbers, not great, but I still do think we can go over that 3.5. Over 3.5 for the Columbus Blue Jackets is where I would go. You hit 2 8-ways, would have hit 10 8-ways, but Stamkos. Yeah, Stamkos. Frustrating to see Stamkos really not coming out in that last game. Owen Tippett for the first goal of the game. Let us know what you're getting Owen Tippett for the first goal of the game for the Philadelphia Flyers. We know he's been coming out strong. You could also look at Travis Konecny of the Philadelphia Flyers as well. I think he will come out for a strong game. Okay. Toronto versus the Buffalo Sabres. The Toronto Maple Leafs sitting in that first in the Atlantic row are a -160 favorite over the Buffalo Sabres today. The Sabres at +132. We got a total of 6.5, -128 to the under and +102 to the over. I do think we're going to see Buffalo struggle to score, and I know this goes against everything. Buffalo's such a strong team. You're looking at this first game home off 3 out there on the road. They're versus the Flyers on Thursday. So they will still have another game to be able to really get a strong performance in front of their home fans. I just don't think it's coming tonight versus Toronto. We saw Toronto in that game versus Montreal win in overtime 1-0, and I do think we see Toronto really locked down defensively in this game. They've got the Red Wings on Thursday. I do think this is one where the win tonight clinches the Atlantic Division for Toronto. We're going to see the best out of them, and I do think it comes on the defensive side. So Stolarz in net tonight for the Toronto Maple Leafs versus the Buffalo Sabres has been outstanding. 4 games played, 3 wins, a 1.47 goals against average, and a .953 save percentage. I expect that style of performance out of him. Now, I know Buffalo offensively really has been lighting that lamp. They've lost their last 3. They came off a game versus the Tampa Bay Lightning on Sunday, which they lost, but they still put up 4 goals. It was a 7-4 finish in that game for Tampa, but I'm not seeing it in this one versus Toronto. Look for Toronto to lock down on that defensive side, and for the Buffalo Sabres to stay under 2.5 goals. And I know I hate doing it myself. It's coming in at +108. You got Tage Thompson. You got these playmakers that are looking to make a splash to end the season, get some of their stats padded, but I'm not seeing it versus this Toronto team here. Toronto's won their last 3. They beat the Carolina Hurricanes on the road 4-1. They held the Canes to 1 goal. And I know the Canes in that game really didn't come out as strong as they could have. But I do think with the division on the line tonight and the clinch possible, we're not going to see what we saw back in December, where we saw that 6-3 style of game for Toronto getting the win. I think this is, a 3-1 style of game out here as the defenses come to play. So if you're really looking for a player here for Toronto, you got to circle Mitch Marner. He's loading for point number 100 tonight. 26 goals, 73 assists. I could see the goal for his point number 100. So I'd look at Mitch Marner for the goal tonight. If you really want to take someone from the Sabres, it would be Tage Thompson for a point. Morgan Riley has recorded an assist in 8 of the last 9 games versus the Sabres in Buffalo. So Morgan Riley and Mitch Marner, you can parlay those 2 guys for their points together and then look at Tage. I would not really give him a parlay piece within this game because I do think it's going to be a hard game here for the Buffalo Sabres returning home. Okay. Let's talk Ovi. Let's talk the Washington Capitals and the New York Islanders. Ovechkin should be playing again tonight. In that last game, Washington was able to put up a goal. It was Ovi in that game versus Columbus. It was a 4-1 win for the Columbus Blue Jackets. They won back-to-back games versus the Washington Capitals. So the Capitals have lost their last 2 now. They're at the Penguins on Thursday to finish the regular season. The New York Islanders rolling in here off a win versus the Devils on Sunday. It was a 1-0 win that they were able to get. This is their last home game of the regular season. They will be at the Columbus Blue Jackets on Thursday looking to play that spoiler. If we do see Columbus get that win tonight and then Montreal lose their next game, the Isles will be looking to play that spoiler role. So last game here at home versus the Capitals team that they just did beat in that one game where Ovi was able to break the record. It was a 4-1 win for the New York Islanders. I do think we're going to see the Capitals play a stronger game in this one. Like I said, we're looking at some of these teams who are making the playoffs. First in the Metro here for the Washington Capitals. They don't need to give it all in this game, but I think we get enough effort out of them that we see a lower scoring game. And the Capitals on that money line would be the way I would go if push came to shove and I did have to take a side. Because at -110 for the Washington Capitals, I do think they need to get in playoff style hockey. I'd look for that lockdown on the defensive side. And this one to stay under the total of 5.5. It's coming in at +104. We know Sorokin has been strong between the pipes. And in that last game when Washington was playing for so much more, Ovi looking for that goal. And still, they played a really solid game. They were only able to get that one goal on the board. So in this one, I'm expecting more out of Charlie Lindgren. And I do think we stay nicely under the total of 5.5. So the under 5.5 at +104. I do think this is, a 2-1 win for either of these teams. And like I said, if I had to take a side, it would be the Washington Capitals. I think Ovi for the anytime goal, you just got to look at, especially as this game goes on. And if the Washington Capitals are up 1-0, 2-0 going into that third period. Now, a couple of players that we do have to look at for watches here for the New York Islanders for their goals. Now, the Islanders have Columbus on Thursday, and I do think it will be harder for them to get these goals today, but I'm going to mention it today in case any of you want to bet them for the next two games because I do think they cash before the end of the season. You've got Noah Dobson here loading for point number 40. He's got 10 goals and 29 assists for the Isles. Anders Lee loading for goal number 30, 29 goals, 25 assists, and Bo Horvat loading for goal number 30, 28 goals and 29 assists. So I would look at Bo Horvat, Anders Lee, and Noah Dobson parlayed for those points. You could look at those goals to come in the next game because, again, I think this is that lower scoring game, and I would look at those goals to come versus Columbus on Thursday. So that is where I would be going. If you really want other playmakers for the Washington Capitals, Strome has been great. So if Ovi's getting a goal, you can see Strome for the assist. He is the playmaker that has had the most assists to Ovi on the season. So he's coming in with 52 assists, 26 goals, and 78 points. We know Tom Wilson has been strong at getting those assists out there as well. No, the Islanders are out of the playoff race. They have been eliminated from playoff contention. So I feel sorry for the Isles out there. Yeah, Mitch Marner trying to hit bank. He wants that goal. He wants a new contract. You're absolutely right. So you got to definitely look at stuff for these playmakers to come out nice and strong. So Mitch Marner, 1 point away from 100. He's got 26 goals and 73 assists on the season. Okay, now we're going to get into the wild card situation in the Western Conference. Utah's taking on St. Louis, Anaheim's taking on Minnesota, and Calgary's taking on the Vegas Golden Knights. This is going to be an interesting night out there on the ice because playoff hopes will come to an end for Calgary, depending on what happens with St. Louis and Minnesota tonight, and if Calgary takes that loss. So let's break up first the Utah Hockey Club versus the St. Louis Blues. Now, odds in this one. We do have the Utah Hockey Club at +126. The St. Louis Blues at -152, total of 5.5 at -128. The Utah Hockey Club have been a scrappy, hard team out there, but this is the second night of a back-to-back. This is their third game in 4 days. I do think the St. Louis Blues will have the upper hand in this one. They have lost their last 3. That's not how they wanted to go into the playoffs, especially with fighting for these wild card spots. They needed to pick up those wins, and they just couldn't. Saturday's loss was heartbreaking for the St. Louis Blues. Shootout loss to the Seattle Kraken, a team that they should have easily handled out there. And now they're going to take on a Utah Hockey Club that has been playing great hockey. This is their last game of the season. Clayton Keller is going to be hungry for goal number 30 tonight and point number 90. So you got to look at that angle. But I do think the St. Louis Blues lock down on the defensive side, and we see a 3-1 style win here for the St. Louis Blues. The St. Louis Blues have been so strong on their home ice, winning their last 11 games. Their win in regulation here would come in at +105. Now, I do think teams that are eliminated, like the Utah Hockey Club, they're so dangerous out there that I wouldn't want to take a puck line, even though I'm looking. In my mind, this is a 3-1 win for the St. Louis Blues. Binghamton expected in goal, Vermelka expected here for the Utah Hockey Club. So 5th in the Central for the St. Louis Blues, 94 points in 81 games. They need to win this in regulation to lock in to that wild card spot. The Wild have 95 points and the Flames have 92, but the Flames do have a game in hand. So this is the last game of the regular season for the St. Louis Blues and the Minnesota Wild. Calgary has 2 left, you guys. So definitely something to know. A regulation win gets them into the playoffs, okay? So the Blues need that regulation win. A win in overtime or a shootout, in addition to Calgary winning in overtime or a shootout, the Blues would clinch the tire. So if we see this game go to overtime and then Calgary go to overtime and winning in overtime or in that shootout, the Blues still would clinch the playoff spot because they hold that tiebreaker. A win in overtime or in a shootout and a Flames loss will clinch for them. A win in overtime or shootout, in addition to the Minnesota losing in regulation, would also clinch for the Blues. So there's a lot of ways. So a loss in overtime or a shootout, along with the Flames loss in overtime or a shootout, would clinch here for the Blues, and the Flames loss in regulation, the Blues would clinch. So there's a lot of ways that the Blues can clinch tonight. So one more time, this is how the Blues clinch. Regulation win, easiest, right? They get in. A win in overtime or a shootout, in addition to the Calgary Flames winning in overtime or a shootout, the Blues would clinch because of the tiebreaker. A win in overtime or a shootout, in addition to the Calgary Flames loss, the Blues clinch. A win in overtime or a shootout, in addition to the Minnesota losing in reg, the Blues clinch. A loss in overtime or a shootout, along with the Flames loss in overtime or shootout, the Blues clinch. Flames lost in regulation, the Blues clinch. So there's a lot of ways for the Blues to clinch tonight. I do think they clinch that spot with a win in regulation here. I'm going to look at Clayton Keller. I do think he's worth looking at for goal number 30 tonight. He's been so strong out there. Point number 90, 29 goals. You're going to get great plus money with Clayton Keller for Utah, even though I think it's a 3-1. I just can't pass up on Clayton Keller for goal number 30. I think it's too much value. Jordan Kyrou here of the St. Louis Blues. Goal number 35 tonight's coming in at plus 175. I know I'm saying 3-1 style win here for the St. Louis Blues, but I do think Jordan Kyrou probably gets 2 of those goals. I'm taking a long shot bet on Jordan Kyrou tonight to be the star of this game and to be able to get 2 goals in this one. His 2 goals coming in at plus 1,100. That will put him at 70 points on the season, 36 goals, then he will be. You could also look at the 2+ points tonight, because that would still put him at 70 points. I would put him at 35 goals and 35 assists, because he does have 34 and 34. So look at Jordan Kyrou for goal number 35 at plus 175, the 2+ goals at plus 1,100, and the 2+ points at plus 4-1 to your money. So I definitely think it's a great way to go as the St. Louis Blues look to finish this off. Oh, you think Calgary deserves to make it, not the Blues? I think Calgary and the Blues both deserve to make it. It's a Minnesota Wild. I don't know about you guys, but what do you guys think of the Minnesota Wild and their style of play? Now, we know Kaprizov got back into the lineup, but this team is boring to watch. We were talking about it last night on Sports Rage. No one cares about the Minnesota Wild except for Minnesota Wild fans. So apologies to each and every one of you out there that are watching and just rolling your eyes at that comment. I just don't like watching the Wild's hockey. And while they do have some playmakers, it's just not exciting hockey to watch. They're not strong. Like, they're good defensively. They're okay offensively. It's boring to me. Yeah, Binghamton has 10 straight home wins, and a win tonight breaks a franchise record. That is fantastic to know, Mo, if I can get my words out. So you guys look for Binghamton to record that win tonight. You're going to get great money with that. Yeah, Robert Thomas, 79 points. I would look at Robert Thomas for a point as well. Hitting that 80 points, you could parlay Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou for a point as well. Okay, let's look at the Minnesota Wild. Now, the Minnesota Wild, the juice just keeps ticking up on this line all day here. They're minus 260 favorite now, plus 210 for the Anaheim Ducks. We got a total of 5.5. minus 134 to the over. I know the Wild can be that defensive team, but the Ducks are playing free hockey with nothing to lose, looking to play that spoiler role. Now, who would they rather see in the playoffs? The Blues, Calgary, they don't care. They're just looking to play that upset role, and I'll look to distinguish hopes here for the Wild. Now, the Wild are sitting in that first spot. So fourth in the Central, 95 points, 1 point in front of the St. Louis Blues, 3 points in front of Calgary. But again, Calgary does have a game in hand. We are looking at Gustafsson versus Dostal are your expected goaltenders. Now, the problem with the Anaheim Ducks is their ability to allow these shots on goal to come by their opponent. They're allowing 31.47 shots on goal in 60 minutes over the last 25 games. And that's just dangerous here versus the Minnesota Wild that do have Kaprizov back in the lineup. Matt Boldy, we know, really stepped up. Without him out there, Ryan Hartman played some good hockey as well. So 6 in the Pacific for the Anaheim Ducks. And again, the Flames need the Minnesota Wild to lose. I'm going to play this one cautiously, and do play it cautiously, you guys. I think the Blues can get the win. I worry about the Wild getting the win, and I do think Calgary can get the win. So I do take a bit of my bias into account when I look at that. The Minnesota Wild just need 1 point. If they get 1 point here, this can be an overtime. They lock in to the wild card spot. So they will clinch a wild card spot with 1 point tonight. And I do think when they don't need like a dominant win here, we could see a little bit of a stumble. Now the Ducks on the puck line, plus 1.5 is where I want to look, because I think the Ducks, even though if the Wild win, so be it. But I think the Ducks keep it within 1 goal. Ducks puck line, I'm just trying to find plus 1.5 is minus 120. We're starting to lose value as money is coming in on this. It was minus 114 earlier in the day, plus the 1.5 for the Ducks. Now minus 120. I do think that line is going to continue to move. I won't be shocked if before the puck drops at tonight that we're seeing a minus 140 here for the Ducks, plus 1.5. But I do think it is a strong way to go, looking at the Ducks plus that 1.5, even at minus 120. The Minnesota Wild could overlook them because they have won the last 4 meetings versus the Ducks, including in December, where they just steamrolled them 5-1. So I do think they could underestimate them. Last game of the regular season, they're coming off the win in overtime versus the Vancouver Canucks. It was a hard-fought battle, 3-2. Now they need to get this win. I don't doubt that they win, but I think the Ducks make a game of it. If you want to look at the Ducks in the first period, because we know that strength has come in the first period, I take the Ducks plus 0.5 goal in that first period to try to stop the Minnesota Wild straight out of the gate. But that's all I'm going to do. I'm very, very cautious with this game. Nyquist, I like Nyquist for the anytime goal for the Wild as well. So I think that is a great way to go. Let's make some freaking money. We so need the Wild to lose. Let's just see the Wild lose, you guys. It would be a nice day if the Wild lose and then Calgary win their next 2. And Calgary's going to be up against a huge challenge. They face Vegas tonight, but then they face the Kings on Thursday. I do think as long as the Kings win tonight, Calgary can win the next game versus the Kings as they rest players. And I do think they have the ability to get the win over the Vegas Golden Knights, as we're already seeing Jack Eichel listed as day-to-day. So Calgary does have the ability to hold on to their playoff hopes and get the win tonight. It's just going to take a lot. Calgary needs to play their best game, and they can't make any mistakes. If they make any mistakes because of the depth on the Vegas Golden Knights, Vegas will capitalize on that and be able to they'll be able to beat Calgary. So Calgary has to play mistake-proof hockey. Again, looking at this wild card race, you have to put my bias into it. Calgary's a plus 105, underdog minus 126 here for the Vegas Golden Knights, and a total of 5.5. Minus 122 to the over 5.5. Calgary, I do think, will allow some goals to come in by Vegas. So I've got to take the over 5.5. It has to come down to Calgary being able to find that offensive production, because we know the depth of Vegas is going to be able to score, even on Dustin Wolf at home, and they will be hungry to get those points on the board. Mark Stone does have goal number 20 loading. I will look at Mark Stone for the goal tonight. We know Mark Stone going into the playoffs is always fantastic. He's coming in at plus 300 for the anytime goal, 19 goals, 48 assists, and 67 points. Thomas Hertl has point number 60 loading tonight. 31 goals and 28 assists. I would look at Thomas Hertl for the point. And then Noah Hanifin, point number 40 loading. That's his point coming in tonight at plus 130. Now, remember, last season, Noah Hanifin was traded from Calgary to the Vegas Golden Knights. So I do think while he could get a warm welcome here, Noah Hanifin will be looking to sink that puck in the back of the net here on Dustin Wolf. 10 goals only on the season and 29 assists. And when we're getting the point at plus 130, I would rather just look at point number 40 hitting for Noah Hanifin tonight. So Noah Hanifin for point number 40, parlay it with Hertl, or look at Hertl and Mark Stone for a point. I actually probably like that better. Mark Stone and Hertl for a point parlay together still will get you great plus money. Mark Stone for goal number 20 at plus 300, and Noah Hanifin separately for his point number 40 tonight at plus 130. But then we got to turn to the Calgary Flames. Calgary, if they're going to make the playoffs, has to win this in regulation. They cannot allow it to go to overtime. So this is what I would do. I wouldn't bet the money line for the Calgary Flames, even though it's plus 105 right now. You're going to get Calgary in reg, because it's, if they don't win in reg, they're not going to the playoffs. So Calgary and reg at plus 145. And still, even if they win this in reg, they still might not make it. So Calgary definitely has been a surprise though this season, you guys. You got to tip your hat to what the Calgary Flames have done, even if they don't make the playoffs, because I don't know about you guys, but I expected this to be a complete rebuilding year, and I didn't expect them to be sitting where they are fighting for that wild card spot. So when you look at who has to step up, Nazem Kadri, we know how elite Nazem Kadri has been for the Calgary Flames this season. His anytime goal coming in at plus 180. When we look at him over the season, he's been able to score those clinch goals when it matters the most. And he's had like 5 huge ones, like either overtime or, tying it up to push it to overtime. So I'd look at Nazem Kadri for the goal for Calgary at plus 180. Sharakovic has been stepping up. He scored a goal in 3 straight games. So you could look at him. Matt Cordado has come out nice and strong. Goal number 25 loading for him. That's coming in at plus 250. I'd be cautious with these players on Calgary to hit those milestones. It's more the free hockey that we're going to see out of some of these guys playing with nothing to lose in these games. But Huberdeau, it's got to be Kadri and Huberdeau for me if you're looking at playmakers out there, because Huberdeau, 61 points, 28 goals, 33 assists. Will I be shocked if Huberdeau gets 2 and he hits 30 goals, or gets 1 and then hits a goal in the next game versus the Kings? Not at all. Huberdeau will be searching for those 30 goals, and he's really had that bounce back season that he needed. And that's another reason why Calgary is sitting where they're sitting. So Kadri for the goal, Huberdeau for the goal, both for a point parlay together is another great way to go in this one. But give me the over 5.5 minus 122. If Calgary's to win this, they win at 4-3 style of game. They have to be able to score here on Aiden Hill. So this is going to be, Vegas isn't playing for anything, right? They're first in the Pacific. They have a home ice advantage in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs with getting that first in the Pacific. They can't get injured in this one tonight, and they don't care about Calgary. They've dominated Calgary, right? They won in April on the 5th, 3-2. So I do think Calgary sneaks out the win in reg. I'll take the plus money there. The over. Yeah, it seems like the over is the easiest bet of the day, which does scare me, Joe, right? But Calgary, if Calgary is to win this in reg, it has to go over the 5.5. Vegas versus Calgary over 5.5, and the Mariners versus the Reds. Nerfy comes in at plus 241. I got to look at the pitching matchup there, Joe. Who is pitching for the Mariners and the Reds? I've just been looking at the hockey slate. We'll be getting out my cup of Joe soon, but I love a Nerfy. You got me at Nerfy and Nerfy. That's always my love language in baseball. Let's look at the LA Kings versus the Seattle Kraken. Last game on deck here. The Kings, second in the Pacific, 103 points in 80 games. We have the Seattle Kraken, an eliminated team that's coming off that game versus the St. Louis Blues, where they were able to get that shootout win 4-3. Last game of the regular season for the Seattle Kraken. And we've got a Kings team that got home ice advantage last night. They got the win over the Edmonton Oilers. There's nothing left to fight for the Kings, and this is the second night of a back-to-back. So do we really want to take something on the Kings? You guys know it's been hard to bet the Seattle Kraken all season with some of their struggles. The Seattle Kraken are minus 105 at home, minus 114 here for the LA Kings, and a total of 5.5 in this game. Now, we're looking at the Kings since March 8th. They've gone 16-4. That is the best in the league since March 8th. This team has been so strong, but with nothing left to achieve before the playoffs, I just can't back the Kings here. But let's just look at a different way to bet this. Let's just take the first period over 1.5 goals. Coming in at -116. I expect these teams to trade back goals in the first period. So both teams to score at +178 as well. The Kings still have Calgary on Thursday. And I do think here, second night of back-to-back, and then Thursday versus Calgary, I don't see them really playing a lot of really lockdown hockey. I think they play a little bit more free out there. So I will look at players for their points. I will look at first periods to the over as well. Now, like I said, both teams to score in the first period at +178. When we're looking at who I would go with the Seattle Kraken, Jared McCann does have 60 points, 22 goals, and 38 assists. Chandler Stevenson with 51, 13 and 38. And Jared Schwartz coming in with 48 points, 25 goals, and 23 assists. Kako coming in with 43 points, 14 and 29. I could see Kako getting goal number 15 tonight. You're going to get almost 4-1 to your money. I'm going to circle Brandon Montour. Brandon Montour is that sneaky defenseman that really has been impactful in a lot of these games, and I think he shows up big versus the LA Kings tonight. He has 40 points, 17 goals, and 23 assists. His point tonight coming in at +148. You know you had me at the plus money. I do think Jordan Eberle for his point tonight, with it coming in at +104, definitely worth a look as well. You look at him in the last 4 games, he's been able to record an assist in 3 of the last 4 games. 25 points, and that is 9 goals and 16 assists. So Eberle has been strong, but let's look at some targets for the LA Kings and these players that should be coming out nice and strong. This is a team that I do trust more. So for Seattle, it will be Brandon Montour, my favorite, for his point tonight at +148, then Eberle at +104. Jared McCann and Stevenson should get on the board, but I would rather look at those two. If Fiala is 60 points loading, he needs 2, though, to hit 60. So the 2 points for Fiala coming in at +340, 58 points, 35 goals, 23 assists. Remember, we still don't know who's going to be resting this game, if anyone, for the Kings. I would expect more of an effort out of the Kings tonight than I would on the Thursday, because playoff hockey starts on Saturday, you guys. So look for more players to be rested in the next one, which is a huge benefit for Calgary if that's how the Kings played out. Kempe, goal number 35 is loading. That's coming in at +180 for goal number 35 for Kempe. 71 points, 34 goals, 37 assists. Kuzmenko, we keep talking about how great of an addition he has been for the LA Kings. Kuzmenko coming in with 36 points, 11 goals, 25 assists. And then Byfield for point number 55, 54 points, 23 goals, and 31 assists. So when I'm looking at who I really want to go with, Kopitar, he's got 67 points. He's been strong as well. But it's Fiala for 2+ points at +340. And then I'd look at Byfield for a point. So you could take Fiala and Byfield parlayed together for a point together. And then it's Kempe for goal number 35. That's +180. It should be interesting to see how they play this out. Calgary in reg. Okay, yeah, I do like the Nerfy in that one. You've got 2 strong pitchers that should be able, even with the top of the lineups. And we know the Seattle Mariners still that top of the lineup. The bats just have not been clicking in some of these games. It's always the issue for the Seattle Mariners. So I like your Nerfy there. Costello coming out. So let's move on to the recap, you guys. Tons to go over in this recap. I'll make it as fast as possible. We'll look at those 2+ points. Remember, looking at players to hit those milestones. If you guys have any, goal number 100, goal number 400, let me know, because honestly, I haven't had a chance to go over all of those. I will drop some tweets on X if I do find any for the rest of the day, but let's make some freaking money. And thank you for being here. Good luck with your edits. Let's make some freaking money, you guys. It's time for the recap. Let's go. If I can look at these current lines here. Just let me pull up the current lines on FanDuel. I just heard my little dog walking around and she kind of shocked me. The New Jersey Devils versus the Boston Bruins. This kicks off at 7 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to look at the first period to go over 1.5 goals at -110. Like I said at the start of the show, I'm not getting enough value on Boston. The line keeps ticking up. They have dominated versus the New Jersey Devils, and the Devils really not playing for much except for to get into playoff form. And I do think they rest players in their tomorrow game versus the Red Wings. So Bruins have every opportunity of winning this one, but I don't like the price that I'm getting. Give me the first period over 1.5. You got to look at Pasta and Geeky in their last home game to really be able to put those points up. Geeky, I wouldn't be shocked if he gets 2+ points. Same with Pasta. I'll take Morgan Geeky parlay together for the points. The Chicago Blackhawks versus the Ottawa Senators. Chicago's team total under 2.5 definitely is in play today. The problem is the books have it too juiced at -154. I would look at the Senators to look to lock down on the defensive side, win this in a 4-1, 4-2 style of game. So give me the Senators on that puck line, laying 1.5 goals at -114. Now, if you just want to play their team total 3.5, you're going to have to lay the juice at -136. I don't hate it. Look for Tim Struzal to come out nice and strong, be able to light the lamp in this game. The Florida Panthers versus the Tampa Bay Lightning. Florida is resting everyone. I do think Tampa first period makes so much sense. Tampa puck line first period laying 0.5 goal at +146. Tampa in reg is coming in at -120 puck line, laying 1.5 goals at +134. Look for their big playmakers to really pat their stats a little bit here. Gunsel loading for point number 80, Braden Point loading for point number 80, and Kucherov loading for point number 120. Parlaying all three of them for the point will get you almost 2-1 to your, or just over 2-1 to your money. The odds are moving on that fast. The Columbus Blue Jackets and the Philadelphia Flyers. Columbus needs to get the win in regulation to hold on to their playoff hopes here. Look at Columbus. The money line is too juicy. I do think if they're winning this one, it's because they have to score those goals. So the money line's -137. I don't blame you if you want to bet it, but I would rather take Columbus's team total over 3.5 at +108. I do think this is a higher scoring game in which the Philadelphia Flyers will push them. Joel Hofer and Ergen. I think Ergen is going to be lit up by Columbus. We know their strength on offense has been at home, not on the road, but they need this win. So the Columbus Blue Jackets team total over 3.5 at +108. Look at Adam Fantilli to light that lamp and Monahan. The Toronto Maple Leafs taking on the Buffalo Sabres. Look for Toronto to lock down tonight. Stolarz has been elite versus Buffalo with a 1.47 goals against average and a .953 save percentage. Look for the under 2.5 goals, and it makes me sick even saying it, for the Buffalo Sabres at +108. I do think Tex Thompson could get a point. I think this is one. Mitch Marner looking for point number 100. Goal number 27, goal number 28. Even Mitch Marner should come out strong. Same with Morgan Riley. Parlay them for their points, but look at this to be a game where you see that defensive lockdown of the Toronto Maple Leafs, as they will, with the win tonight, clinch the Atlantic. The Washington Capitals versus the New York Islanders. Give me the under 5.5, as I do think the Washington Capitals need to lock down on that defensive side. And we know Sorokin the last time versus the Caps, he was able to hold them to that only one goal that Ovi was able to net. So look for the defensive game under 5.5 at +104. I would count on Ovi for that anytime goal. And when you're looking at playmakers for the Islanders that have targets to hit, if you want to play any of them today, I don't blame you. I do think it's a lower scoring game. And if I had to come to shove, I'd take the Capitals to get the win here on the road. But the Islanders have this game and versus Columbus on Thursday. I think the targets probably come on Thursday, but I'd hate for you guys to miss it today if they're coming. Bo Horvat for goal number 30 is loading. He has 28, so he needs 2 more. Anders Lee loading for goal number 30 tonight. He's got 29. And Noah Dobson loading for point number 40. So definitely playmakers to watch. It would be Dylan Strome for the assist with Ovi if you're looking at an assist prop for the Caps, or Tom Wilson. The Utah Hockey Club and the St. Louis Blues. The Blues need a win in regulation to guarantee themselves their playoff position. So if they don't win in regulation, there's a bunch of different ways that the Blues will clinch tonight. Basically, they cannot leave fate in anyone else's hands. So the Blues, coming off a disappointing shootout loss to the Kraken, I look for that lockdown in this one. It's going to be hard versus Utah. Utah is a hard, scrappy team. We know Clayton Keller is loading for goal number 30. I'm going to hit that, but I do think the Blues win this 3-1. So give me the Blues in reg at plus 105. They won their last 11 home games. I'm going to also look at, you guys talked about Binghamton, how strong he's going to be. I'm going to look at Kyrou. I love Jordan Kyrou. Now, if you want to parlay Kyrou and Robert Thomas for a point, I love it as well. But I'm going to take Kyrou for goal number 35 at plus 175. Kyrou for 2+ goals at plus 1100 and Kyrou for 2+ points. I think he is in the mix of all three of the goals I'm expecting the St. Louis Blues to get tonight. So 3+ points. Not out of the question. The Anaheim Ducks and the Minnesota Wild. I think the Ducks keep it tight. They are an eliminated team looking to play scrappy hockey out there. Troy Terry has been playing great. And I do think the Ducks plus 1.5 at minus 114, especially with how the Wild like to lock down once they get a lead there. It should be a strong way. Now, the Wild still can win this, but I do think the Ducks keep it within that goal. The Vegas Golden Knights and the Calgary Flames. Calgary needs this win in reg, you guys. So don't bet them on the money line. They can't afford to go to overtime. If they go to overtime, they're going to lose. So if Calgary is even tied, 2-2, 3-3, I am looking for this to go over the 5.5. So the over, I think, is the best play. But even if Calgary is tied, they're going to put goaltending and risk Vegas taking that win in reg because they can't go to OT. So look for Calgary in regulation overtaking a money line bet, or just look at that puck line. You're going to get great plus money laying 1.5 goals on the puck line for Calgary. I wouldn't do it, but I do think that has a better chance of hitting with the value you're getting, taking the alt puck line for Calgary laying 1.5. because they're going to have to push at the end of this game to be able to get the win. They can't take their foot off the brake. And we know Vegas is locked in. They're going to get the first round at home and the second round at home with that first spot in the Pacific. Give me the over 5.5. Give me Mark Stone for goal number 20 for Vegas. That's coming in at plus 300. Give me Noah Hanovan for point number 40, former player here for the Calgary Flames. That's coming in at plus 130. He played with them most of last season before traded over to Vegas. Thomas Hertl also has point number 60. Expect Vegas to rest players in their next game versus Van tomorrow. And then, but Jack Eichel still out of the lineup tonight. And then Nazem Kadri here for Calgary for the goal at plus 180. Jonathan Huberdeau for a point tonight is where I'd go as well. Now, when we look at the LA Kings versus the Seattle Kraken, I do think you look at this one to start off hot and fast. Give me the first period over 1.5 goals at minus 116. That way, it doesn't matter if the Kings get both goals, but I do think both teams can score in the first period as the Seattle Kraken look to finish their season on home ice with a bang. So both teams to score at plus 178. We talked about Brandon Montour for his point. It's coming in at plus 148 for the Seattle Kraken. I think it has every opportunity of cashing. He's got 40 points on the season, and I love the plus money. Jordan Eberle coming in for a point at plus 104. He's been getting those assists in 3 of the last 4 games. But when we look at the Kings, that's where I have more faith. Fiala loading for point number 60, 2+ points will get him there. 2+ points for Fiala coming in at plus 340. Again, 58 points, 35 goals, and 23 assists. Then I'll look at Kempe for goal number 35, which is loading. It's coming in at plus 180. Byfield for point number 55 is loading as well. But you can't go wrong with the playmakers here for the LA Kings. Kuzmenko has been playing so great. Kempe, Kopitar, you've got great playmakers out there for them. So that is a recap when I'm looking at those 2+ points tonight. The players that I like most for their points out there, you guys, I do think you could make like a long shot, just kind of mixing up all these players for points, and I'll throw Mitch Marner in. Mitch Marner for 2+ points tonight isn't out of the question here versus the Buffalo Sabres. I do think Toronto's going to hit James Reimer, but I'm looking at still a lower scoring game there. But Mitch Marner 1 point away from hitting 126 goals, 73 assists on the season. So look for Mitch Marner to come out nice and strong in this one. He's probably one of my favorite players to circle out there on the ice. And you guys know I don't circle a lot of players for Toronto a lot. And then the Tampa Bay Lightning versus Florida. You got to kind of worry about what the mindset is going to be for both of these teams in this one, not looking to show a lot. But Gunsel, Point, and Kucherov, I think, are really solid looks for their points tonight. You got to look at Fantilli because he's playing for so much here for the Columbus Blue Jackets and Monahan. But then I think you turn to the St. Louis Blues, and I love Kyrou. I love Jordan Kyrou to come out strong. Robert Thomas to come out strong as well. So that's kind of where I'm going. I do think Kadri comes out strong. I'm trying to take my bias out of that one for the Calgary Flames. So be cautious with that. But I do think if we're circling one player, it's got to be Jordan Kyrou to come out nice and strong tonight. But you guys, we are right on that 1 hour mark. I want to thank you all for joining me here for Puck It with Jo. We will have a clearer playoff picture for those wild card spots tomorrow, as well as we should see Toronto being able to clinch that spot in the Atlantic. So we will see some more of these matchups really taking form. But you guys, any other both teams to score? Yeah, both teams to score, Anthony. Good question in that first period. I really do think the Ducks and the Wild, that could be one where we see the Ducks come out and score as well as the Wild in that first period. So I do like the both teams to score. The LA Kings and the Seattle Kraken, I like the both teams to score as well. And I do think Calgary and Vegas, we could see another one where both teams get on the board in that first. Calgary, it's going to be vital to answer back to the Vegas Golden Knights in the first period. And I do think that's where we're going to see the strength of Vegas really showing up in that first period with their depth players. I would look at Columbus and the Flyers as well, both teams to score in the first period, as the Flyers look to play that upset. Favorite players on the Columbus Blue Jackets, it has to be Fantilli for the 2+ points, but you know how strong Monty has been. Monahan coming out elite for the Columbus Blue Jackets. I'll go with Fantilli. He's got goals back-to-back multi-goal games for Fantilli. So he's been really playing so hard. But you are so welcome, you guys. Let's make some freaking money out there on the ice tonight. We'll see you tomorrow. Now, tomorrow's slate in the NHL is lighter than today's. I was actually shocked at how many games were today. We've got 6 games on the ice tomorrow. We'll see the Ducks versus the Jets, Carolina versus Montreal. Montreal with their playoff hopes. They need a point to lock into that spot. And then Detroit versus the Devils, the Stars versus the Predators, Vegas versus Vancouver, and Edmonton versus the San Jose Sharks. Lines aren't out on the Sharks yet, but I would look at the Sharks to come out really strong. We'll see if we get any players actually playing tomorrow for Edmonton. Everyone did rest yesterday. Toffoli still loading for those points. He disappointed me in that last game, but we'll be back on some of these players, looking for them to reach incentives at the end of the season. So make sure you do join me for that. It's a great way to really bet some of these last games out here on the ice. But you guys, all the best to each and every single one of you. Mo, thank you for being here every day. And to all of you, thank you so much for being here every day. If you can hit that like, hit that subscribe, and hit that retweet button over on X, you're guaranteeing, as long as we get enough viewership over on SportsGrid TV on X, we will be live every single day next year of the NHL season, regular season, playoff season. You know, if hockey is on, I'm going to be talking it. So you guys, all the best. We'll see you tomorrow.